Hey guys, this tutorial is my walkthrough for the assignment that is due this coming Tuesday entitled Memoirs Revisited. Okay. Documenting change. Memoirs Revisited. The objective here is for you to explore techniques for writing your own memoir and examine the benefits of peer review. There we go, get some light going in here. Okay, if you will stop the video now and watch the short introduction from your end, and then we will pick up from here. Okay. Using I will never forget as a sentence starter, write down 5 of your memories. They can be good, things that you would never forget. They could be bad, happy, sad. This is just a warm-up activity. So I want you to type your answer in the box below, and you're going to write down 5 of them. Okay, I will never forget blank. I will never forget blank. And do that 5 times. Now, to brainstorm ideas. A memoir is an account, of course, of specific experiences that you have had. Okay, it's different from an autobiography because it doesn't attempt to describe the life of the writer. It's just one or more phases of it. It's more focused. For example, Nick Hornby wrote the novel Fever Pitch about the role that football played in his childhood. A memoir isn't just an account of events about what happened. It's something personal to the writer, and it may contain a strong theme or a message that the writer wants to convey to the audience. You're going to be writing a memoir in the 5-paragraph format to explore this theme that we've been looking at during this third 9 weeks. How does your mind and body change as you grow? Now, before you jump into writing about it, you want to gather your thoughts and ideas. And on the next screen, let's stop the video and watch this video that's going to give you some additional information. It's very short, and then we'll go from there. Brainstorming. This activity helps you write narratives to develop real or imagined experiences or events. It helps you use precise words and phrases, precise details, and sensory language to capture action and convey experiences. So you're going to read the instructions for the self-paced activity. Type your response in and then check your answers. At the end, you're going to need to evaluate your work. So start by generating the main idea for a brief memoir. Your main idea should be the basic thought or message that you want to put across to your audience, and it should address questions like who or what or when or where, why, or how. So in one sentence, write down the main idea for your memoir. And remember, it needs to be about how does your mind and body change as you grow up. Okay, so now you're going to outline it, plan it out. After you've selected the topic and theme, the next step is to organize the information. In other words, you need a good outline. An outline is like your roadmap. It is going to reflect the 5-paragraph essay process, and you can also refer to this hyperlink here, writing process, to understand the role of an outline in the larger process. So let's look at the steps on planning your memoir. You want to keep your audience in mind. Think about who your target audience would be. Are you writing to kids? Would you want to write to teenagers, friends, or family? You can decide that, okay? Because how you write to those different audiences might be different. The way that you write to younger people, elementary school children, might be different than how you would write it if you were writing it to a family member, like a parent or a grandparent. So once you decide who your audience is, think about the purpose. Okay. So do you want to inform your audience? Do you want to reflect? Do you want to entertain, convince, instruct, or simply retell? Now, if you're writing about how your body and mind change as you grow, if you're writing to children, you want to write to inform them. If you are writing to a family member, like a parent or a grandparent, you might want to write about it as a reflection. Okay? This activity is going to help you meet some goals. And I've already mentioned them about the narrative writing. That's just a repeat of a previous slide. So now we're going to shape your memoir. Expand on the idea that you wrote on the main idea part. Why is your memoir important? That's what you want to write about in this box, okay? Just explain, in your own words, why do you think this memoir is going to be important? What message do you want to convey to your audience? Write that down in the box here. The next part is going to be writing the memoir. Notice when you look at this slide, when it tells you to write the memoir, it's talking about strong verbs and nouns, and it's talking about figurative language. So the first one you want to think about is strong verbs and strong nouns. Okay, instead of saying a huge man ran toward Fred, that's just, a random example of weak nouns. And when we mean weak, we mean vague. They're not specific. You could say a giant charged at Fred. Do you see the difference when you use a strong noun like giant and a strong verb like charged? You see the difference? And then figurative language. Of course, that's adding those adjectives and that sensory description where you pull in, it sounded like this or it felt like this, and maybe using personification. Using things like that is going to make your story more interesting, more vivid. It's going to help the reader see a mind picture when they're reading your memoir. So figurative language is important too. Sensory language, I already mentioned it in the previous slide, important. If you can add dialogue and action, that's even better. If you're telling about something that happened to you, you might include some of the actual dialogue that came from that moment. The dialogue, the spoken words during that experience that you're sharing. Of course, at the bottom here, we're looking at transitional words and why are those important to a memoir? Usually you're talking about past events. So you're going to want to use transition words like meanwhile and next and later, because you're establishing that time frame, what happened first and what happened next. And it helps with the flow of ideas. When you're writing your memoir, you want to focus on describing, you may tell about what happened, and then you may want to stop and talk about your thoughts and your feelings at that point. Okay? That's important in a memoir. Try to present your viewpoint and then explain how those experiences shape who you are. For example, maybe you had an argument with a friend and you thought you were right, but later you realized it was your fault. And that whole moment taught you to learn to accept flaws and accept the fact that sometimes you're not always right. Initiating an event. Think about starting your memoir with an event that sets the course for the rest of the events to follow. You might want to start with the scene of the first day of school, and then talk about how you evolved from there. And then notice there's an example here. that Nathan wrote on a college essay. This is the name of his essay is The Big Race, and it was a memoir. A lot of times your college entrance essays are going to be like memoirs. So it's important that you learn how to write this type of writing. As you read his example, though, you want to see how he used the literary techniques that we discussed earlier. Did he use figurative language? Did he use transitions? Did he use stop and explain and self-reflect on what happened to him and what he's trying to convey to you, the reader? So take a minute to read it as if you were the teacher and you were analyzing his essay. Okay. The next part you can do on your own. The next part you also do on your own. All right. This activity will help you follow the 5-paragraph format. Write the introductory paragraph of your memoir. Remember, you want it to be maybe an opening story, open with a dramatic scene from your experience. Remember, you want it to be highly dramatic so it will catch the reader's attention. And then at the end of this paragraph, you will include your main idea, which is your thesis statement, okay? And then you're going to hit submit. And then the next part, you're going to write the second paragraph. You remember, this is where you're going to start introducing details about the setting and the people that are in your story. And then submit that. And then the next part, the third paragraph of your memoir, is you're going to continue talking about the rising action, what is happening in your experience. And you continue to develop those characters and that setting and the actions that happened, explaining this experience that you're wanting to recant to the readers. And then the next paragraph, on paragraph 4, you're going to include the highest point, the most dramatic moment in the experience. Maybe it's the pivotal moment where you realized something. That would be your climax, your climactic moment. So that's what's going to be in the 4th paragraph. And then in the 5th paragraph, it's time to sum everything up, okay? You're going to restate what you said in paragraph 1, your thesis, your main idea, put it in different words. And then you want to include 3 reflection sentences. That means maybe looking back on that experience, what were 3 things that you observe about those? What are some conclusions you draw? What are some lessons you've learned? 3 sentences, different sentences, not a 3-sentence explanation as to what you learned. I think it's asking you to have 3 different sentences about what all you've learned in that experience. And then you'll write 1 final sentence to close out your essay. And then hit submit. And then you've got your self-evaluation at the bottom. Well, how did you do on a scale of 1 to 5? And then talk about what you did well, what you learned, what was hard, those types of things on your self-evaluation, okay? The next slide is going back and learning how to revise and proofread your first draft, because that was just a very rough draft of a memoir. You want to go back and look to make sure your message is strong and clear. You want to tighten up the language, make sure you're in active voice with your verbs, and that you're precise in your explanations, that you don't beat around the bush, that you're using strong verbs and strong nouns. Eliminate any unnecessary words. Okay, you don't have to worry about a word count. It doesn't have to be a certain number of words. So if you find that you've got unnecessary words, or maybe you've kind of repeated yourself, you can eliminate those words. The next thing you want to do is reread your draft again and check the way the ideas flow. You might notice the events maybe don't flow in the right order. You may want to change them up a little bit. So spend a little bit of time rearranging sentences if you need to. Remember, you should always reread and revise at least a few times to look for ways to make it look better, to make it sound better. And a lot of times you can't spot all the errors just reading it 2 or 3 times. You want to maybe put it down, go get a snack, take a break, and then come back to it. Or maybe ask one of your parents to read it for you to see if they notice anything and let them make some comments on it. Provide a checklist for your parents. This is what you want them to look for. The checklist is right here. You can click that open for them while they're reading your draft. Okay? And consider using their suggestions to improve your memoir. Okay, so you're going to open the notebook tool and read the first draft from a different perspective to make it better. Copy and paste it below, then use the methods to improve your writing. Adding sensory words, okay? Marking the verbs, maybe underline them or highlight them. And then check a thesaurus to see if you can maybe change them to make them even stronger, better verbs. Vivid, And when I mean vivid, I mean, do they paint a really good mental picture? Can the reader see what you're telling about? And then you're going to rewrite some sentences using dialogue. If you didn't have any dialogue, try to redo some things. And instead of saying that he talked about this, maybe you say, what was it he talked about? And put that in quotation marks. What were his words? Don't just talk about what he said. Actually let him say it in the essay. Look for places where you could maybe use a simile to strengthen your writing, okay? It sounded like firecrackers going off in my mind. Add a simile. And then you want to maybe try writing 3 new beginning sentences for your memoir. What would be 3 other ways that you could start it? And then select the best one and go with it. All right. Once you finish revising it, then you need to proofread for errors like spelling and grammar, okay? First, and you always want to read it several times. And each time you read it, you're going to look for just one thing. You don't want to try to find every error reading it one time. Okay, the first time you want to maybe check the formatting and make sure it flows in the content of the paragraphs. Then the second time you read it, check capitalization and then and subject and verb agreement. And then finally, read it one more time and look for spelling and punctuation errors. And then you can use that checklist there to help guide your proofreading steps so that you don't miss anything. And then your summary, of course, is your final video. And that completes the tutorial about writing a memoir.